You could literally spend, $20,000 building the absolute fastest, most beautifully designed website in your industry today.
Yeah,
And then,
and in exactly 6 months, it's completely obsolete.
right, in 6 months, an AI search engine could quietly banish you to, page 10 of the search results.
Yep.
And it's not because your content went bad or your competitors vastly outspent you. It's simply because you let some $10 plugin go out of date.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. It corrupts your site's architecture, and the AI just deems your platform structurally unsound. So today we are unpacking the silent killer of modern websites, which is digital decay.
It is a phenomenal hidden cost. I mean, people pour massive amounts of capital and development time into creating these perfectly optimized, blazing fast web environments, and then they essentially just abandon them to the elements.
Like they think the internet is just static.
Exactly. They assume it's static, but it is not. It is a highly corrosive environment.
And that is the exact premise of our deep dive today. We are looking at a stack of research centered on fully managed website maintenance, specifically focusing on platforms built with the Breakdance builder.
A really specific, highly technical ecosystem.
Yeah, so our mission today is to figure out why a Breakdance website that's lightning fast on day one inevitably devolves into this sluggish, vulnerable liability if it doesn't get a very specific type of care.
And we're also going to explore how specialist providers actually engineer a solution to this.
Right. Our research leans heavily into a company called Viral Chili for this part. So, okay, let's unpack this because the reality of how fast a site decays is way more aggressive than I think most people realize.
What's fascinating here is how the documentation draws a very hard, unforgiving line between the generic, we'll update your plugins once a month mentality and what fully managed actually means.
Right, like treating a high-performance website like a luxury sports car. You wouldn't just give it a basic oil change and expect it to win races.
Exactly. It needs systematic, intentional care. The research explicitly calls out standard checklist maintenance as fundamentally inadequate for high-performance systems.
I do have to push back on that right out of the gate, though. I mean, when I hear website maintenance, my brain immediately goes to a generic IT service. Someone logs in, they see a little red notification bubble, they click Update All, and they log out.
Which is terrifying.
But why? It's just HTML, PHP, and some style sheets, right? Why the melodrama? Why isn't clicking Update enough?
Well, because clicking Update All on a live production website isn't maintenance. It is a massive, uncalculated risk. Think about how software interacts. You aren't just updating a single isolated file.
You're touching the whole system.
Exactly. You are altering code that communicates with your database, your server environment, and dozens of third-party scripts all at the same time. If one of those new plugin versions has a conflict with your core builder,
The entire site goes down instantly.
instantly. This is why the very first pillar of a real operational system is a staging environment. A fully managed service, like the Viral Chili model we're looking at, never ever updates on the live site first.
They do it offline somewhere.
Yeah, they clone your entire website to a private server. They apply the Breakdance builder updates there. They validate the WordPress core compatibility, test how the new code interacts with your specific plugins.
So they're physically checking the front end to ensure the layout hasn't broken.
Right. Only after passing full quality assurance does that update get pushed to your live, public-facing website.
It's basically like running a bomb squad simulation in a bunker before you try cutting the wire in the middle of a crowded city.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. And that same rigorous methodology has to apply to security, too.
Because generic services just throw a free security plugin on there, right?
Right, and call it a day. But a fully managed operation does continuous malware scanning with real-time response protocols. They enforce two-factor authentication across the board. They monitor file integrity.
Which means what exactly?
It means if a single line of code is altered by an unauthorized user, an alarm trips instantly. And they do things like harden the wp-config.php file.
Let's pause right there because wp-config.php is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot in tech circles. But let's break down what that actually is. Why is that specific file so critical?
Okay, think of your database as a massive bank vault, storing all your user data, your content, your sales records. The wp-config.php file is essentially the master blueprint that contains the combination to that vault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it holds your database connection strings and security keys. If a hacker gains access to that single file, they own your entire website.
So hardening it means locking it down at the server level.
Exactly. So even if a vulnerability is exploited elsewhere on the site, the core vault remains impenetrable.
It makes total sense. And looking at the research, there's another point that stood out, which is backups. I always thought backup was just, a
I
backup.
set it and forget it.
Right. You set it to run automatically at 2 a.m., it saves to a cloud drive, and you're safe. But the documentation makes a massive distinction here about restoration testing.
Yes, and this is where most DIY setups fail catastrophically. Taking a backup is only half the job.
Because if you don't test it,
If you do not verify that the backup file can actually be unpacked and restored into a working website, you do not have a backup. You just have a very large, totally useless file taking up space.
because the file could be corrupted or it might not have captured the database properly.
Exactly. A true managed service constantly verifies the restoration process. They run drills, and they commit to a recovery service level agreement, an SLA, measured in hours, not days.
So if your site gets wiped out, you need to know legally and contractually how fast they guarantee you'll be back online.
Exactly.
Which brings up the performance side of things, because it's not just keeping the site safe, it's keeping it fast. The research brings up terms like core web vitals, specifically largest contentful paint and cumulative layout shift. And it mentions clearing out database bloat like transients. What is a transient and how does it slow down a website?
Well, a transient is temporary memory. Let's say your website has a widget that displays your latest Twitter posts or a dynamic pricing table. Instead of asking the server to fetch that data from scratch every single second a new visitor arrives, WordPress saves a temporary copy.
A transient.
Right, to speed things up.
That sounds like a good thing, though.
It is, until they expire. Over months and years, thousands of these temporary files expire but never get deleted. They just sit in your Mobpoptions database table.
Like digital cholesterol.
That's a great way to put it. Every time a user clicks a page, your server has to wade through all that garbage to find the relevant data, so your server response time drops.
And this hurts your largest contentful paint.
Yes, which is just Google's metric for how long it takes the biggest image or text block on your screen to render.
And cumulative layout shift. I'm assuming that's when you go to click a button on a website, but an image loads late, pushes the button down, and you accidentally click an ad instead.
That is the perfect example. It's incredibly frustrating for the user, and search engines penalize you heavily for it. Monitoring and fixing these specific metrics is what elevates maintenance from a chore into an operational system.
And to prove this work is actually happening, you shouldn't have to just take their word for it, right?
No, the documentation stresses the necessity of monthly, detailed reporting. You need data proving the bloat was cleared and the vitals are healthy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Everything we just talked about applies to WordPress generally. But our focus today isn't generic WordPress. It's specifically websites built using the Breakdance builder.
Right, which changes the game completely.
Yeah, to use an analogy, treating a Breakdance site like a legacy WordPress site is like hiring a brilliant electrician to fix your plumbing. I mean, they're both house maintenance, but the context is totally different.
Completely different.
So what happens when a generalist gets their hands on a Breakdance site?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at how page builders have evolved. Older legacy builders like Elementor or Divi often rely heavily on massive DOM trees.
Like huge amounts of nested HTML code.
Exactly, and short codes to render a page. Breakdance is architected differently. It is designed to be incredibly lean, outputting cleaner native CSS. But because it is so integrated and streamlined, approaching it without contextual knowledge during a major update cycle is genuinely dangerous.
Dangerous feels like a strong word. I mean, worst case scenario, maybe a font size changes or a color looks weird. How does a blind update actually break the architecture?
Let's look at template rendering. Breakdance uses a highly specific system of global sections and conditional logic for its template hierarchy.
Okay.
Let's say you have a custom header that only appears on product pages and a different header for the blog. If a generalist pushes a major core update that tweaks how CSS Flexbox rules are compiled in Breakdance and they don't test it in staging first, your entire global header can just vanish. The navigation menu disappears, the layout structure completely scrambles.
Wow. So the user just arrives at a break-in, unnavigable page.
Worse, let's factor in dynamic data. Breakdance integrates deeply with tools like Advanced Custom Fields, or ACF, and Custom Post Type UI.
Right, so instead of typing out every single real estate listing by hand, you have a database of houses, and Breakdance automatically pulls the price, the photos, and the address, and slots them into a beautiful layout.
Exactly. Breakdance is the visual map, and ACF is the filing cabinet. Breakdance uses specific dynamic tags to connect to that cabinet. If an update shifts how those tags are processed, or if an ACF update conflicts with Breakdance's rendering engine, that connection snaps.
The bridge is broken.
Yep. Your beautifully designed real estate portal suddenly turns up completely blank. The data is still in the database, but the site can't display it.
And if you're running an e-commerce store, I imagine WooCommerce adds a whole other layer of anxiety to this.
Significantly. Breakdance has custom WooCommerce integration that bypasses a lot of WooCommerce's default bloated styling. It allows for incredible custom checkouts.
But WooCommerce updates all the time.
Constantly. And those updates often change the underlying hooks. A generalist who doesn't understand Breakdance's specific WooCommerce elements might push an update that literally breaks the Add to Cart button.
That's a nightmare. Which brings us to the actual blast radius of all this neglect. It is easy to look at maintenance as just a technical headache, right? Something for the IT department to worry about.
But it's not.
No, the research dives deep into the hidden financial and SEO casualties of getting this wrong, and honestly, it is terrifying. People skip managed maintenance because they want to save maybe a few $100s a month. But the math proves that skipping it is the most expensive business decision you can make.
Because maintenance is fundamentally an insurance policy for your revenue and your search visibility. And the landscape of search visibility is not what it was even 2 years ago. The research highlights a massive shift.
The AI SEO threat.
Exactly.
This is what we were talking about at the top of the show. We are talking about Google AI overviews, engines like Perplexity or ChatGPT browsing the web to answer user queries. AI search is rapidly replacing traditional keyword search.
And here's the critical difference. A human reader might tolerate a site that takes 4 seconds to load, or ignore a slightly broken footer. But an AI crawler does not just read your blog post. It actively assesses the underlying structural health of the platform hosting that post.
It looks at your server response time, your schema markup.
Yes.
Let's define schema markup really quickly. That's the hidden code that explicitly tells search engines what a page is about, right? Like,
Yeah.
Hey Google, this isn't just text, this is a recipe that takes 30 minutes to cook.
Exactly. It categorizes your data for the machines. Now imagine the botched update corrupts your Breakdance template, and it accidentally strips out your schema markup or changes all your H2 subheadings into plain text.
The AI crawler arrives, looks at the code, and sees structural gibberish.
Yep. It sees a bloated database that takes too long to respond. The AI algorithms actively deprioritize platforms that offer poor user experiences or insecure code. You don't just lose a little traffic gradually. The AI simply stops citing you as a source.
You get demoted.
Overnight.
And then there's the cost of an actual security breach because you didn't have that file integrity monitoring we talked about. Somebody gets into your wp-config.php. The research throws down some hard numbers here. Fixing a hacked website costs anywhere from $500 to well over $2,000 in emergency recovery services alone.
And that figure is just the developer's invoice. It does not include the lost organic traffic while your site is offline displaying a red "This site is deceptive" warning from Google.
Oh, that warning is a death sentence.
Being blacklisted by search engines for harboring malware can wipe out years of SEO investment. It takes months to regain that trust. Furthermore, emergency developer recovery rates, when you're calling someone in a panic at 2 in the morning, are typically 5 to 10 times higher than proactive maintenance.
Put yourself in the shoes of an e-commerce owner. Imagine that botched WooCommerce update we talked about earlier happens on Black Friday. Your checkout flow breaks. You aren't just paying a developer triple time to fix it. You are bleeding thousands of dollars in lost sales every hour the cart is broken.
You are literally paying a premium for the privilege of panicking.
Which is the exact opposite of how a resilient business operates. Maintenance and SEO, maintenance and revenue, they are completely inseparable concepts now.
Entirely.
So what does this all mean? If generic providers are a massive risk because they don't understand Breakdance's architecture, and doing it yourself is a recipe for expensive disasters, who actually fills this gap?
You need an operation that lives and breathes this specific builder.
Which brings us to the viral chili model. The research heavily features them as the benchmark for solving this exact problem.
They stand out because they solve the core bottleneck, the need for specialized, platform-specific expertise at scale. The documentation identifies 3 distinct groups who desperately need this level of service. First, business owners.
Because they need to run their business, not audit CSS.
Right. Your time is your most valuable asset. Second, developers. High-level developers need to focus on building new, profitable features, not getting bogged down in the endless cycle of plugin updates.
And the third group is agencies. Honestly, the agency side of this is huge. If you're an agency owner listening right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You build 20 beautiful breakdance sites for your clients, but the moment you launch them, every single one of those sites becomes a liability if you don't have a robust maintenance plan.
You end up spending your Friday nights doing emergency database rollbacks instead of pitching new clients.
Exactly. It creates a massive ceiling for growth. An agency simply cannot scale if they are constantly putting out fires.
What makes Viral Chili the benchmark here is that they operate specifically within the breakdance ecosystem daily. They aren't a massive generic support desk where the technician answering your ticket has to go Google what Breakdance Builder even is.
They bring genuine contextual expertise to the code. And looking at Viral Chili's specific differentiators, it maps perfectly to every single red flag we've discussed so far. They use a staging-first workflow, without exception. No cowboy coding on live sites.
Never.
They don't just store backups. They have documented, rigorous backup restoration testing. They employ 24/7 security monitoring. And I love this specific point. Their performance optimization actually preserves Breakdance's native speed. They don't just slap a heavy caching plugin on top of a bloated database.
They keep the foundation clean. And for the agency owners you just mentioned, Viral Chili offers a massive strategic advantage, which is white labeling.
Let's explain the business mechanics of that. Why is white labeling such a game changer for an agency?
Well, white labeling means Viral Chili does all the highly technical, specialized work behind the scenes, but they provide branded reporting that carries the agency's logo.
Oh, so the agency can then resell this fully managed maintenance to their clients as a premium retainer.
Precisely. The agency gets to offer a top-tier business continuity plan, build monthly recurring revenue, and protect their clients' digital assets.
All without having to take on the massive payroll expense of hiring an internal team of breakdance specialists.
Viral Chili absorbs the technical overhead.
It transforms maintenance from a terrifying liability into a highly scalable, profitable service. It really is the ultimate peace of mind button.
It is.
But let's say you are listening to this and you want to vet your current IT provider, or maybe you are shopping around to see who actually knows what they are doing. The research provides what is essentially an interrogation playbook.
It's a fantastic cheat sheet to expose the generalists who are just wearing specialist clothing.
It really is an effective filter. The documentation outlines 4 mandatory questions you must ask any potential maintenance provider before giving them the keys to your server. Question number 1. Walk me through your exact update process for Breakdance Builder version releases.
And the rule here is simple. If they answer that question and do not immediately say the words staging environment, you walk away. End the meeting.
Unquestionably. If they update on live, they are a liability. Question number 2. How do you handle Breakdance's dynamic data integration during major core updates?
This goes back to the ACF filing cabinet analogy. This question is designed to test their depth. If they give you a vague, reassuring answer like, oh, we make sure everything works, that is a massive red flag.
They don't understand how Breakdance specifically maps dynamic fields to global templates.
Right, they have shallow expertise.
Question 3. Where exactly are the backups stored, and how frequently do you test the restoration process? We know the answer we're looking for here. Off-site storage and actual physical daily testing of the unpack process.
If they just say the cloud, push harder.
And the final question. What is your specific SLA response time for a site that goes down? You need a hard number written into a contract.
We'll get to it as quickly as we can, is not an SLA. It is a platitude. What makes a service like Viral Chili the recommended solution in the research is that their entire operational model inherently answers all these questions confidently.
And they don't just say it, they back it up with transparent process documentation and monthly reporting.
It completely takes the guesswork and the anxiety out of the equation.
So, bringing this all together, Breakdance is an absolute powerhouse of a visual builder. It is incredibly fast, remarkably flexible, and it generates beautiful code. But that unique architecture demands highly specialized care.
Yes, it does.
If you treat a modern Breakdance site like a generic WordPress blog from 2014, you are inviting catastrophic SEO drops, devastating security breaches, and emergency recovery costs that will make your eyes water.
The overarching lesson from the data is that hope is not a business strategy. Intentional, systematic maintenance is. Whether you are a business owner trying to protect your most vital digital asset or an agency looking to scale your revenue through white-labeled retainers without losing your mind.
You need a partner who understands the machinery at a microscopic level. You
Yeah.
need a benchmark standard like what Viral Chili brings to the table. You wouldn't let an amateur recalibrate $1 million piece of machinery. Don't let them touch your website's core architecture.
This raises an important question, though. If we think back to the AI SEO threat we discussed earlier, we know that AI engines like Perplexity and Google's AI overviews don't just read the surface-level text on your page. They ruthlessly judge your site's underlying structural health, its speed, and its code integrity.
Right.
So consider this. If an AI were to crawl your website right now, not just as a casual reader, but as a hypercritical judge of its structural integrity, would it confidently recommend you as a top-tier authoritative source?
Sure.
Or would it quietly bury you on page 10 because of a botched plugin update and database bloat from 3 months ago that you didn't even know happened?
Wow. That is a chilling thought, but an incredibly necessary one to sit with. You can have the most beautiful digital storefront in the world, but if you don't look under the hood and systematically maintain the engine, eventually the whole thing is going to seize up. Take care of your digital assets, folks. Get a specialist. Make sure it's fully managed. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.